Our chart takes up the full width and height of the SVG element. It would be nice to have some margins on our chart, but how do we do that? Well, there's a specific element in SVG called a group. A group is a bit like a div in that it's a container that holds other elements. The difference, though, is that we don't see groups. Instead, it is a convenience element that allows for its children elements to be affected and moved together. So now let's go to the code. What we'll do is underneath the SVG element, we'll create a variable called chart, and we'll set that equal to a group that is appended to the SVG element. svg.append, and we'll append a group, which is the G element. So let's give this a class, classed as display. Set that to true. Now we want to draw all of our visualization within this group. Well, thankfully, we created this plot function, and all we need to do is change the reference from SVG to chart. And now everything is drawn within this particular element, and that's because we're taking advantage of the .call function, and that sets the keyword this within plot. Save that, go and refresh. Let's look at elements within the developer's console, and if we scroll down to the SVG element, we can see that there is this group here that has the class display, and now all of our elements are inside of it. So now let's incorporate some margins. We'll go up to the code, and just underneath the width and height, we're going to create a variable called margin, and that'll be an object that has a top property set to 20, a bottom property set to 20, a left property set to 20, and a right property set to 20. Now we'll create a variable called width, which will be the calculated width when you take into consideration the width of the element and the margin. So the width of the SVG element minus the margin dot left and minus margin dot right. We'll have the height do the same. The height of the element minus margin dot top minus margin dot bottom. Now the key here is to calculate our X and Y scales based not off the width and height of the element, but the calculated width and height. So that'll be width and height. So save that and refresh. And now you can see it's scaled down some. We'll center the information by going back to the code. Just before the semicolon for chart, add .attr. And we're going to affect an attribute called transform. The transform attribute lets us move the group. And it expects a value called translate, which looks like a function. The first value is movement on the X, and the second is movement on the Y. So what we'll do here is we'll take out the first 0, open and close the string, and we're going to insert into it margin.left. And we'll do the same thing for the second value. We'll blank it out, open and close the string, and we'll do margin.top. Save that, refresh. Now our chart has a nice 20 pixel margin, and we're able to move all of the elements together because they're grouped within an element that we call chart within our code.